What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your movie podcast for reboots, requels, sequels, prequels, everything else that they've done before and will do again to see why we keep retelling these stories outside of that sweet, sweet money. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week saw the return of the Bad Boys franchise to theaters. And I will forever almost call this one Bad Boys for Life, but it is not. It is Bad Boys Ride or Die. We totally missed the mark. It's a missed opportunity. We could have had a sweet number 4 there in there. I don't know why we didn't think about this, other than that they clearly didn't plan to make a fourth one, which
No.
proves that there wasn't a master plan, which I think is sort of comforting. It is also, I think, the first major Will Smith movie since The Slap, proving that anyone who's not on the internet doesn't care about
Does
it.
not give a shit.
So let's get in. Terrence, what did you think?
I had fun. These movies are fun. I genuinely look forward to them all, and it's a weird thing, timing wise, almost like American Pie a little bit. But I've grown up with this series. Like this series has sort of taken gaps and had these moments where you sort of just let's go see what Marcus and Mike are doing again, and that's sort of the fun that you kind of get with going into this. A good buddy action comedy. I'm not in the ranking spot yet where I can rank the films, but I think what I will say out of this, I love that the series is also aging with the two. And so you're going through some things like anxiety attacks and things that weren't previously there. Sometimes a little done dealing with death a little bit too on the nose for me, but for the most part, it's enjoyable enough that I can kind of ignore that. The action sequences in this are fun. When they crank up the action, it is a good time. And there's some good use of camera angles and the way that things are shot. You're just kind of like, oh, this series as a whole is starting to keep inventive and at least stay on its toes. It never feels like it's old hat, which I think sometimes the Fast franchise has gotten so big and so massive that it starts to feel a little bit like, oh, we've been here, we've done this. You can't outdo this. This series has started off pretty grounded and it's starting to do a couple of things in here. There's an airplane sequence that gets a little nutty here, but for the most part, the action sequences are done in a way that I'm like, oh, that's inventive. That's a cool way to do it, and it never sort of pulls me out. It's bordering on that superhero style of action, but it's not quite there yet. But I think at the heart of it, it's Will and Martin. Like that, the script be damned, it's fine, but the two of them doing these great action sequences and the two of them have chemistry that just make whatever you put at them just shine. And I think from 95 to now, these guys you can tell both on screen and off screen these guys have a big chemistry together, and it comes through every time that they're on screen together. Who doesn't bicker with their closest, their ride or die, their best friend all the time? That's what these two do. But you also know that if you call them at 3 o'clock in the morning with a problem, they're already putting their pants on before they answer the phone. That's who these guys are, and that's sort of a dope thing to have. And I think if you have that person in your life, you watch these films knowing that that's who these two are, and it's just sort of vicariously living through them. But I had a good time. There's not a bad film in this franchise, which is a rare thing to say for something that's been around for like 20 plus years.
Yeah,
30 years
30
actually.
years, 95. It's been a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the weird things that's kept the franchise going as strong as it has is they seem to have hit the right release window where it never feels too far away from the old one and never too close. I think of like the Amazing Spider-Man being too close to Spider-Man 3
Mhm.
situation. And then I think of like, I don't know, Zoolander to Zoolander 2 or
It's too
Anchorman to
long of a
Anchorman
time. Yeah.
2. Like, yeah, you hit this decade stretch and it's too much. And I feel like for a reboot, sequels are kind of different, but like a full reset 2 3 years, and again, it depends on what you're doing. Because counter to that, you have Batman and Robin to Batman Begins,
Mhm.
and it's such a weird math thing to hit.
Yeah.
It's something you see a lot in like the video game industry too. Of oh, I really wish we got like a Mario game more than once a decade,
Mhm.
but whenever it comes out, it's the best thing ever.
Exactly.
And then you have in the other corner, like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty that are just copy and pasting
Cranking them
over
out.
and over
Yeah.
again, and you get tired. And we're seeing it with like Marvel fatigue and this. And it's interesting that this has kind of weaved in and out of that. I think you're right, though. There's a lot of stylistic choices that change. We had Bad Boys 1, then 2 went like full Michael Bay.
Michael Bay times 50.
And then like, and 3 was pretty crazy. And then this is really, I've seen so many other people say it on Twitter and everywhere else. This is like the next director who should do Spider-Man. Some of that stuff on like the
Yeah.
first person to third person, first person shooter looking stuff, which I really should hate because I've hated it. We did it in
Like when
Doom
we
with
did
The
in Doom,
Rock.
yeah.
And it's never really worked for me.
Hmm.
And it is still a little weird here, but I don't mind it as much. And I think it's because we're swiveling back and forth
Hmm.
and watching the how they did that with that
That
rig
helps.
on Will
That helps a
Smith and
lot.
that
Yeah.
swing. Like it is cool. And you are seeing a lot of new ways of filming these kind of movies in this
Hmm.
movie, which I think is also kind of keeping it fresh. That style and new things to do with the camera and directions to shoot. And when you have a backdrop like Miami, it's easy to make everything sexy and
Look
pretty and
gorgeous.
cars and
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
but when you sort of can find those inventive, like that full 360 shot Michael Bay does around the
Hmm.
doors when they're back to back, and 3 has a lot of weird dark shadows when we get to the Bruja, and this is just full tilt Spider-Man swinging around
Yeah.
like it's a video game.
The elevator sequence coming above the elevator and through it. It's just done masterfully. It actually, I sat there half the time. I was like, these are the directors that they took Batgirl away from. Why did we do that again?
We'll never know until we break into that vault on the Warner Brothers lot. It's just sitting there on celluloid collecting dust.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just don't know why. Um, but there has always been a fun style to this. There's always been a song that goes with it.
Hmm.
There's always been like a everything that a lot of these other action comedies I think want to do that like Fast and Furious sort of get, but those did start to feel like the same. They blend in. Like Fall Guy recently came out. It's a
Hmm.
weird thing to compare it to, but you know, that didn't do great at the box office and this did. And I really liked both of those movies, but you're right. Fall Guy doesn't really have the friendship core that
Hmm.
this movie has. This really lives and dies on Will and Martin, and they're
Yeah.
back and forth and they're pulling you in, and these weird intimate details they know of like don't go in there and buy Skittles, don't go in there and do this, and watching them get so like nonchalant around like petty criminals
Right.
that they're not even
They're
concerned
not
with
even
anymore.
threatened by, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much fun to see that. And they've really nailed the other archetypes in this genre. The captain has
Hmm.
always been such a good part of it. Even now, from Beyond the Grave
Yeah.
and with these text messages in this, and you know, you see a lot of the tropes from other action spy movies, right? Like we are doing the we're fugitives on the law now, and we are
Hmm.
doing the like, well, we have to save the dead captain's name, and it's new to this franchise,
It
and
is.
it's fun seeing them in that position. Because
Right.
like so many other movies do the like, oh, you have a son you didn't know about, and he's the bad guy now, and oh, you
Yeah.
didn't know about this case that somebody was working on, and it should feel old hat, but it just doesn't. And
No.
I think so much of it is their like brotherhood almost. They're just like back and forth and they're bullshit. And you're right. We get on that plane and it becomes a roller coaster ride. And some of the physics are getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
Like it is sort of like we're getting close. But
Hmm.
I think if we keep spacing them out by 5 years.
I'll be okay. Yeah. Um, I also I would be remiss if I didn't mention it because it's going to be a big talking point of this. A 20-year callback to Bad Boys 2 with the Reggie sequence that happens in this movie is chef's kiss. Like the Reggie sequence, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but when that happens, your mouth's going to drop and you're like, oh, that's a masterful payback because most films series don't get to do that. Like a character that was like you show up to date somebody's kid and they're threatening you with a gun, and
Yeah.
now you are the badass, which is just cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything with Reggie was great. Every character, they really did a good job of giving everybody a big
A beat.
action beat.
Hmm.
Because there were moments that like small-ish spoilers that you figure out, oh, someone's sleeping with a bad person, and there are moments of like, yeah, we got
You
it,
get
we
ahead of it a
know.
bit. Yeah.
You get so far ahead of it.
Yeah.
um but you still get payoff from all of that, and all the
Hmm.
relationships feel sincere and real and built enough. and like the physicality of all of it. It never really feels like a CGI slugfest. Like we're still slamming people into glass and blowing
Yeah,
things
and
up.
I
And
think it's important that all these there's like 4 or 5 action set pieces in here, and none of them feel like the other, which is a big thing for this type of film because that jail sequence with his son is violent. Like it is aggressive how that like you see blood spurting, but you don't really get overkill with that. Like that doesn't really come back again in the rest of the film. So it's just like, oh, each one of these guys sort of has a different fighting style. And that's important as a director to be like, hey, each of these sequences is we're approaching this action differently from one to the other.
yeah, yeah, that also it keeps it moving, it keeps it exciting. It almost feels like a video game in that structure. It feels like
Hmm.
we're going to start in the level in Miami, and then we have the prison level, and then we have the airplane
Yeah.
level, and then we have the alligator level, and then we have the final
Yeah.
level. And it does build into that. And it is, it is weird. I know a lot of people in the last one got a little hung up on like there's a literal witch in this universe now, which is weird to say.
It is.
And we don't really do that as much in this one, but we do a lot of like, I saw something in the afterlife and I can't die and oh, it's not my time. And I think those are the things to me that are going to make the franchise start to feel a little untethered.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
weird. I'm not gonna lie. Like when that was happening, I was like, "Oh, this is weird." Now the saving sort of grace to that is that Martin is such a good comedic performer that doing the "I can't die," the payoff of it sort of works.
oh, yeah.
But it's just like, oh, the whole floating through the air and seeing this like this is we've never done this before in this series. This is odd. This is jarring to all of a sudden get this. But I guess they've sort of earned a cachet because in the third one there's a freaking witch. So okay,
Yeah. It never took me out of it, but it was enough there to sort of be like, oh man, I guess this is just part of it now. We're always going to have
right.
some weird, like,
Ethereal
ethereal
thing.
afterlife. I don't
Yeah.
like, I guess so.
Yeah.
And yeah, the payback was great because it was another solid callback to other movies, and it was a good excuse to get more of the captain. And I will
Mhm.
always let Cypher onto the screen and talk and do his thing. I'm really glad we figured out how to bring him back and make it meaningful and still keep that character the way he was, where he is
Right.
still sort of insulting them and sort
Yeah.
of dogging on them,
Yeah.
but is also like, yeah, I need you though, but like you
And-
fucking idiots. Like,
yeah. And it's cool also to sort of include it's a weird thing. Sometimes it doesn't work, but here we see his daughter, which makes sense why we wouldn't have seen him in the other films because she wasn't in the police realm, but well now with her dad there. But getting Rhea Seehorn, I can watch her do anything from Better Call Saul. It's cool to have her now, and she has some sort of tics that she curses a lot, like her father did, which is sort of on on brand. But in this weird like, I like you, Mike, but you're also the reason your kid is the reason why my dad's dead. So I'm not really rocking with you right now, and I want to kill your son. That's a cool impetus for her to sort of be introduced, and that we didn't have her before. And I'm like, all right, I'm okay with not having seen her before, and I can understand this world. They would all know each other without us as the audience having
yeah,
seen them together.
no, yeah, nothing bothers me when we've been around this long and we've had 5 years in
Yeah,
between to be like, oh yeah, here's like his 20-year-old daughter that you obviously wouldn't have met in the first movie because she would
right,
have been a child.
correct.
um, that yeah, that all worked for me. I'm a big sucker for the like I'm coming for pure revenge and then
Hmm.
just being like, but I can't.
Yeah.
Um, I do like that we didn't give that a clean. We didn't Fast and the Furious it where we're all barbecuing with the
Hmm.
main villain now and being like, we're
Like everybody's
brothers.
here. Like, come on.
Everything's
Yeah.
forgiven. You killed Han. Who
It's still
cares?
messy. There's still like
Yeah.
it's not a bow you can put on this. Like it's still a lot of feelings and a lot of messiness that happens in there. So yeah, it's not clean. And I dig that. Like that's more honest than the let's all go drink a Corona and you just tried to murder me.
And I don't think any of it really got cleaned up. We have a couple good scenes with the son being like, so you weren't around and this was a problem.
Hmm.
And we have a great few moments where Martin Lawrence is still like, well, you need to get over it because he didn't even know. So like,
Yeah.
shut up. But
Right.
like at no point, it almost reminds me of, I think it's like the rule. This is a weird left. I think Curb Your Enthusiasm and Malcolm in the Middle had the like, no hugs, no lessons. We're not going to
Hmm.
do what other sitcoms did where we all learn and grow. It feels like they added that to this, where it's like, yeah, we're not going to end this where everyone hugs and says, I'm sorry and forgives each
No.
other. It's still going to be, is real. He's gonna go and they're gonna be mad at each other, but they're still gonna have this bond, and it's just gonna be
Yeah.
tense until something's earned, until
Yeah.
you can walk back
Yeah.
from that line somehow.
Because I think it's very important that Mike said to him after he did what he did to protect the granddaughter. He kind of was just like, "You did good." He kept repeating like, "You did good, you did good, you did good." And I was like, "Oh, that's the dad saying to your son, like, I'm proud of you. You did what you're supposed. You did. I appreciate you. You're not the bad person that everybody's sort of putting you out to be. But this still can't be clean. Like, we still not hugging this out. We're not there yet."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, understandably so.
Yeah.
This is like, no, it's a very impressive thing in the fourth movie to keep it this fresh. I feel like so many movies, one, either the fourth movie is before it's even a 10-year-old franchise,
Hmm.
or you are in a Mission Impossible, Scream, it's been so long, the Matrix situation where you're sort of trying to come back.
And we folded in
And
so many different new characters that it's not even really the same DNA as the original.
yeah,
Where this is a series that has basically circled around two people the whole time and has been the better for it. Like, I think seeing them age is what sort of has helped this franchise have a lasting effect. And be damned of a slap or a PR thing that sort of
I
happened
was
with
going to
Will.
say, like, he still got it.
He is.
Like
He is
he wasn't
still a
gonna slap
charismatic.
his talent out of the
No,
hand. It's not like it spews out of him like Spider-Man webs.
I will
Like,
say though, it is funny that there's a sequence in there where Martin just slaps the shit out of Will like 3 or 4 times. I was like, I wonder if this was put in just cause.
yeah, it's a that was so now long enough ago.
Yeah, I
I
look,
feel like
I feel like there's a group of people that care about that.
mostly white people.
Yes, and the black and
As
brown
a
folks,
white, I can say this.
and the black and brown folks don't care. We still rock with Will, and I think that's what you're seeing with the audience and why the box office is doing what it's doing in comparison to something like Fall Guy, which I think is the same sort of audience, but was primarily for a white audience. They didn't show up for that, whereas the black and brown folks, we like Will. We don't show up for you, Will. And that's sort of the difference, I think, in the two box offices.
That's definitely there. I do still think, and I retweeted it too, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like whatever it fell short of by its expectation, which I think was only like 10 or 15 million,
Mm-hmm.
is what the Phantom Menace re-release made that same weekend.
Yes.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there is a very weird like, hey, the Fall Guy didn't do great, but also like everyone my age who is paying for a movie.
My Fall Guy thing is like I feel like that Fall Guy trailer gave me everything, gave me the
It
movie,
did.
gave me the movie, and that didn't do it any favors. I still wanted to see it, but I was like, oh, I know the beats of this film. Whereas I don't know what I'm getting out of this. Like, I'm just know that I'm going for another ride to go see Mike and I'm using their real names, Mike and Marcus, to go have another good time in Miami and to see what sort of happens next.
And to
But I think
pretend
it's
that John Lovitz was cast in that role like he originally was going to be.
Dana Carvey and John Lovitz would have been a very different film.
Oh, every now and then I just picture that Mike Laurie's that was a witch, Michael. Oh,
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's such a fun thing to think about.
it is. It's a weird world to sort of like think of an alternate universe where that's what the bad boys would have been. And I mean, this started between two TV at the height of their TV sitcom eras, the two of them joining forces together, and it sort of has just blossomed to this massive franchise, which is fun.
Yeah, it's a very like traditional tent pole. Like we didn't really make an event out of this the way like Deadpool and Wolverine is making an
Yeah,
event.
yeah.
Um, it clearly has fanship. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of like diversity and inclusion. These people are showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I do also, it's interesting because I know so many people have looked at the box office and it's like, I don't think there's that much to hyperanalyze about it, right? It's like Fall Guy didn't do great. Well,
Furiosa didn't
Ryan
do well.
Gosling
Yeah,
has never been a huge
he
blockbuster
doesn't pull
draw.
people in. Yeah,
He's great. I love him. I'm not here to say
agreed,
that,
agreed.
but like
And even like Furiosa, I love it. But that previous Mad Max
Mad Max didn't
wasn't a box
do,
office bomb like bona fide stud either. So it's like, and then this one has less quote unquote star power. No
and
matter how
two,
you Go ahead.
good examples of movies that are like, man, they really didn't do that great and they cost so much fucking money. And it's like,
So much money.
well, there you go, guys. Like Furiosa still made a fair amount. That was a weird weekend. That was the worst Memorial weekend since like Casper. So that is
Yeah,
a like, ugh, but
something is off. Yeah.
I
Um,
mean,
but like these bad boy movies, with the exception of Bad Boys 2, because Michael Bay, they just like do whatever you want. Those these budgets have been pretty modest for especially for what they are. That first one only cost $19 million, but the third one was like 100-ish. This one's right around that two, like
yeah,
no, the third one was like 90. This one's 100. That's the budget you sort of need to keep these in if you want to make a profit. Like that third one was the one right before the world shut down. It was the highest grossing
half a
film of that
billion
year. Yeah,
dollars.
it's insane. um, if you can get a return off of that, this has already made its money back. Like it's even. So anything that happens after this point it's in the green. It cost 100 million to make. They've made 106. So like,
And I know it's like a probably 200 million on marketing. So it's like once
yeah,
they get like they've
once
made
they
their
get
production back, and then
correct,
there's not that much to be excited for until Deadpool now. So they'll
right.
probably just keep
Like the
running
legs
with
will
it.
be there. People are talking about this film, specifically people who have been a part of the franchise the whole time. Like, oh no, there's some fun things you want to see in this. So I think this is going to have legs for a bit.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it does make me happy because it is good. One, I would have been so annoyed if the discourse had to be like, well, Will and this and that, da, da, da,
And
da. And it's like,
so yeah,
and we just get to be like, no, he's still good. He's still got
yeah,
it. He still draws them in. Any bomb that he's been a part of is just like people don't want to see that movie.
yeah.
Like, or it was on Apple TV.
Like
Like, why are
Emancipation
we
doesn't count as the first film back after the slap because one, it's a slave film, which a lot of people like me. I'm like, I don't want to see that anymore. But it's also an Apple, who is the lowest streaming
right?
place that people
It was the
have.
same thing with Cherry when they were like, can Tom Holland draw a
Yeah,
crowd? And I was like, he can't get people to sign up for Apple and buy an iPhone. But yes, like, what are y'all talking about? These
yeah,
they leave Apple, they go hang out with Sony for a week, and you guys make a bunch of money. So I don't know what
yeah,
what we're talking about here.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it really shows. I think also that we're not really tired of this genre. I think we're tired of how sometimes this genre looks and feels. I
Hmm.
think that was another Fall Guy thing, is it looked like a lot of other movies like this, where I
Yeah.
think this movie leans into its R rating a bit more. It leans into its like, we're gonna put this weight and hit this guy with it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. Yeah, they're really not even comparable. They're just the same
No.
genre, and
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I think it's just a weird time where we're not seeing, but like Apes did well, this did well, Deadpool's going to be fine.
Gangbusters. Yeah.
I'm sure Borderlands will do fine.
Yeah. Because
Um,
that's an August. Is that an August release?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. Like
is
that seems like an August, like
that
it'll
game is
have legs. Yeah.
huge. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, some of this stuff is like, yeah, it's fine, guys. It's all, I hate to be like, well, it's all the IP driven stuff, but like, I don't know. Welcome to every decade of filmmaking since the
Yeah.
80s.
I mean, I think the ones to watch going forward are probably the family ones because those are the ones that I think have taken the biggest hit. Families aren't really just showing up. So it'll be interesting to see Inside Out where that sort of nets out because that's the one that you're like, well, that should have a big audience.
I think that's
But
next, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That should have a big audience, but who knows if families are like going back to a theater. I think that's where the expensive ticket sort of starts coming into mind is when you start have to take two or more people to a theater.
I do also think it's interesting, and it's probably not worth getting into on this one because we're not even talking about horror movies. But I saw recently that whatever horror offering, oh, The Watchers is
Mm-hmm.
like the another all summer. Those have just been quietly tarot strangers, watchers,
They're
these
all
little
doing quite
bird
quite quite bad considering how low their budget is. Like I know Strangers
and
opened well, so I think it's sort of breaking around even, but usually
Abigail
these
didn't do great. Like, yeah,
yeah,
a lot of the horror stuff also, which is usually the like cheap little, all we need to
like
do
we
is
can
make
make
20
their money.
million.
Right. Right.
It's a very strange, I think that's almost more telling. It's interesting to be like, oh, the family stuff and the horror stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we'll see. Yeah, next is Inside Out 2, and then Bike Riders. And is this a re-release of The Exorcism?
Yeah, I
Or no,
believe
it's just a movie
so.
called The
The
Exorcism. And The
Exorcism. Yeah.
Exorcist is what the
Yeah.
okay, well, that's not going to make any money.
No.
Bike Riders might. And then A Quiet Place Day One. Yeah, I think the rest of this month is going to be really interesting. And Maxine and Despicable Me. You're right. Now we're just going to go
because Maxine has an
Horror.
audience. Maxine has an audience. There's a huge following behind the Mia Goth stuff. So like, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Those are two big films, both quite different versions of bigness. But A Quiet Place and Maxine have very specific audiences that should pull people in.
And I really want Twisters to do well, but it's a week before Deadpool 3, and I just
Yeah,
don't know.
I have a feeling that audiences are going to be like, I'm going to hold until the movie that I want to see next week. And you and I talked about this. I don't know. I'm going to watch Hitman probably when we get off here. I don't know. The world keeps trying to put Glenn Powell on us, and I'm not sure we want that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it'll be fine. I think this is like the third summer in a row that we've been like, is this the end of movies? And the answer is sort of.
There's a
Um,
difference. Like it's not as I don't think a hit is as guaranteed by just saying, "Hey, I'm going to put some explosions on the screen and you guys are going to show up." I don't think it's that simple anymore. I think there has to be a little bit more that draws an audience to because people are being a lot choosier with what they go to a theater to see.
and I don't think it's rocket science. Make the movies more accessible, make them cheaper, get your theaters cleaner. Like this is no longer. I
Mm-hmm.
just saw a great. Everyone's been saying it everywhere. I'm not the first one to say it or discover it,
Yeah.
but Quentin Tarantino had a great interview recently on like a director's roundtable where he was like, "Remember when these blew up in the 30s and 40s because it was like the thing that you could bring the whole family to do, and it was like the cheap American pastime. It was like baseball. Everyone went to the movies and played baseball, and now concerts are $300." Like we all just saw the thing that's like Jennifer Lopez and Justin Timberlake and all these other people aren't blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, right. So much of entertainment is becoming inaccessible to
Right.
everyone. This is
It's almost
it's
becoming like art, like paintings art, where it's like,
yeah.
hey, you have to be of a high class to enjoy this.
And here's the thing, these aren't good enough to be in high class society. Like
Exactly.
I don't want Deadpool 3 to be high art.
Right.
I don't want to think about that as a classist thing. That's
Right.
insane. But
Yeah.
it is insane because now I spend $20 if I don't have a list to go see a
Mm-hmm.
movie in IMAX and then 20 more on popcorn. God forbid I want to buy the 4K for
Yeah.
$50, the cost of a video game.
And
Like
not
it
and don't let you be at a theater that doesn't have parking, like an open parking, like if you have to pay for parking. So like
oh,
it's that gets up there. You're coming out $100, 80 at least $80 for just yourself.
yeah,
You
we've really
yeah.
suck the fun out of it. And then there's theater etiquette. And I'm just going to be very, very honest. I don't get that mad when somebody checks their phone once or twice. If you're on it the whole time and I can keep seeing it, whatever. But like send a text, again, I don't care.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the people who are like literally on their phone or
yeah.
like recording a scene from it. That's when I'm like, all right, guys, you're not
And
at home.
you sit in the back row and there's absolutely nobody else behind you. Fucking go to town. As
Right.
long as I can't hear it. What do I
Right.
care?
Yeah.
And I know that that's counter to so many people I know right now, but I
Yes,
don't know.
we have friends who are
But
very specific about
like
that.
the other reality is like, is that getting worse or is it just different? Because I remember going to the movies when it was like everybody around me is talking. I
Hmm.
remember going to the movies when it's like people had their Game Boy out. I was like,
Yeah.
it's never been a perfect. We all sat down in suits and let the movie unfold. There's
Yeah.
always been assholes.
Yeah.
They're just different now.
I think now that you're spending more money, it's becoming more
That's really what it
others.
is.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing that with concerts too. Like I saw a
Hmm.
lot of people who are like, I spent a lot of money to come
Yeah.
here, and there's just like people like singing near me, and it's like, well,
Well,
no shit,
that's the point,
Sherlock.
guys. That's what
Like,
we're gonna do. Yeah.
but it does suck. I mean, it even
It does.
sucks when you spend $50. I don't think that's how much there anymore to go to a baseball or football game, and some guy spills beer on you. Like it
Yeah.
really is unfortunate. But like I don't, I don't have the answers that'll actually happen. I have the answers that are obvious. Accessibility, cleanliness, affordability seems pretty
Those are the three that and I think the other two on the back end, studio issues is open the release date. Like if you release a film, don't have it on VOD within
they
like the next
gotta
45
stop
days.
doing that.
Yeah.
They need, like, it really is weird to be like, we have to just retrain these audiences. But
Because
like,
like there are sometimes, especially as a father, where I can't get to the theater all the time. There's sometimes like, oh, well, that'll be on VOD in like 12 days. I can just wait. Like I don't need to go ahead just my day to go ahead and make
which
that happen. I'll just go see it.
I mean, we'll see, but like that might be what's happening with horror movies. Cause like I would like to see The Watchers, but I don't think I'm going to go on a Monday or a Tuesday now that I didn't go this weekend. And it
Same.
will probably be on Peacock soon.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
like,
That's where I'm at, and I'm a moviegoer. But that's even I am slight choosing a little bit of what I choose to go see. I also think that you and I've talked about this before. There shouldn't be two blockbusters releasing on the same day. or even within a week of apart. There should be back in the day. The reason why a lot of these had legs is because there was a you get 2 weeks and then I'm coming in 2 weeks after you. Stuff cannibalizing each other. I feel like that's what's going to happen in Twisters. Is like, cool. The next week is Deadpool. We're not going to see that.
And you do, I mean, you got him. And it's not only just making it an event. There's a part of me too that's like, get back to some of the traditional marketing. Putting everybody on the red carpet and hoping for fun clips on TikTok isn't doing it.
I will say the marketing. I've seen Will and Martin everywhere. Like they have been everywhere for this movie. Like Mexico, like they've been literally running the gamut. They got Will on Hot Wings. Like this has been a marketing blitz, and I haven't seen a movie do a marketing blitz like this in years.
Maybe since Barbie,
Yeah, so this is this
which
this
how
season.
did that turn out doing? It's a very weird thing. If you want your product to do well, you need to market and advertise it to the people that want to see it. And then if you
Yeah,
want it to make money, they need to spend money on it. You can't just be like, hey, wasn't
here
the
it is.
Madam Web press tour fun?
Right.
Also, the movie's not very good, and it will be on Netflix in 3 weeks. Why didn't that make money?
Why didn't this work? Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. They don't pay me to sell the tickets, so what do I care? Um,
But you guys should see Bad Boys in the theater because I think it's
you
a theater worthy
Yeah.
film.
Oh, it's great. It's
Yeah.
so fun. It's a blast. And that is our show, guys. As always, you can follow it on Hollywood ADI on Twitter. Hollywood already did it on TikTok and YouTube. On YouTube, Terrence does all of the trailer reactions and TV show reviews and everything else that we don't catch here. And I'm at, as always, Blake. He is at Terrence Tatum on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Um,
Me either. Yeah.
I'd still Comiskey Park. It's not even, it's still the Sears Tower.
Yeah.
We're
Heinz
going
Field.
way, way
Yeah.
back. I'm
Yeah.
not doing
Yeah.
guaranteed rate. I don't even remember what it was before that. Um, and we will see everybody next week, probably.
Later.